Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to give everybody a couple more minutes to join the meeting. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and welcome to our discussion regarding traffic calming features that we're going to be installing in selected St. Louis County subdivisions. This meeting is being recorded. To enable closed captioning, go to More, Language and Speech, and Show Live Captions. My name is Misty Bell, and I'm the Transportation Development Analyst for St. Louis County. The team presenting today will be Glenn Henninger, our Division Manager for Project Development, Betty Tesfu and John Shrewsbury, our Planning Support Supervisors for Project Management, and our North and West Area Engineer, Adam Spector. Glenn is going to start us off with some general information about traffic calming. Glenn?
Yeah, traffic calming has become a very common term in our business these days. Hopefully, a lot of you are familiar with it. It's pretty much a combination of physical features that slow motor vehicles down in residential neighborhoods, make them safer for pedestrians and cyclists. Can be broken down into two main categories, vertical deflections and horizontal deflections. So vertical deflections are raised features like speed humps, speed tables, raised crosswalks, and in some cases even raising an entire intersection above the normal pavement elevation. And how you get the speed reduction is a specifically designed ramp up and then ramp back down. So for whatever target speed you're trying to get people to travel at, that ramp is comfortable for that speed, but it is not comfortable to travel at much higher than that. Long time ago, I have been around a while. If you see the gray hair, people would confuse these with the old speed bump that you might find in a grocery store parking lot. Speed bumps are much, much more abrupt. Sometimes it's harder to travel those at more than 5 miles per hour, depending on their design. But so for this project, speed humps are what we are going to concentrate on. They are somewhat more effective than the horizontal deflection features, and I'll get into those a little bit because they will be part of a future traffic calming program if we can find a dedicated funding source. So horizontal deflections, they are more changing curb lines. We call them, sometimes we call them bulb outs. It's just taking away part of the street as an option for the motorist and making them go out of their way to go in their straight line. The straight line effect, when they can go in a straight line for long distances, that's when speeding starts to creep up, and it may not even be purposeful. It's just a matter of a wide street in a straight line, and speeds can sometimes creep away from people if they're not paying attention. So if you think about a subdivision that has space for on-street parking, if it isn't heavily used, you get that wide street, straight line effect. If it is heavily used, say you're in a subdivision, somebody's having a barbecue, there's cars parked on both sides, majority of folks will naturally slow down to navigate around the parked cars. So horizontal deflection kind of mimics the parked cars in areas that there's not a lot of on-street parking being used. For this particular project, Betty will follow me with how we determined where we want to try this. And like I said, we do not have a funding source yet for a permanent program. It's somewhat of a pilot right now to see how it works. But the funding was part of the NFL settlement that 2024, 2025-ish St. Louis County Council dedicated a portion of that settlement for subdivision street resurfacing, and a portion just dedicated to safety, which this is part of. And I will kick it to Betty.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. My name is Betty Tesfu, and I'm the project manager for this subdivision traffic calming project. So today I'll be providing an overview of the program and explain how these roads were prioritized. And I'll briefly explain the speed hump design we're proposing for this project. The primary goal of this project is to reduce speeding and improve the safety for drivers, pedestrians, and all roadway users. To achieve this, we are proposing to install speed humps along selected subdivision roads to slow vehicle speeds and create a safer residential environment. So to determine where the speed humps are most needed, we started with subdivision roads where residents reported issues such as speeding and cut-through traffic. And we used the scoring system to evaluate and prioritize the locations. And the criteria we used are speeding, crash rate, crash severity, cut-through traffic, and sidewalk gaps. And based on this criteria, we prioritized the roads. We have compiled a list of roads where the speed humps are expected to be installed as part of this package. Let me share my screen. Am I sharing the screen? No.
It was up for a minute. There you go.
Okay. All right. So all the roads that you see green highlighted are expected to be included in this project, and the purple highlighted are the ones if the funding remains after completing the primary list, then the additional purple highlighted roads may be added. The project proposes installing speed humps spaced approximately 300 to 500 feet apart. This spacing helps manage the vehicle speeds effectively while maintaining smooth traffic flows. And the detail sheet outlines a standard parabolic profile speed hump that is about roughly 3 inches at its center. And this design helps slow traffic effectively. And to make this hump also clearly visible, white thermoplastic pavement markings will be also added on the top, and then the warning signs will be installed in both directions. So overall, the design follows the established standards to improve safety, reduce speeding, and support a calmer neighborhood environment. I will pass it to John this time.
Thank you, Betty. My name is John Shrewsbury. I'm in the Transportation and Public Works Department with the rest of the team. And tonight, thought I'd share a few photos of actual speed humps that are out on streets there. Many of these are in the city of St. Louis. Their installation has been an ongoing program for a couple of years now. But as Glenn had described and Betty was discussing, there's markings on the speed hump itself. You can see in the that across the street there, and then there's a sign indicating, for the drivers that they're approaching a speed hump. That's one example. There's others around that you can see here. People park on the street. There's probably only one lane of traffic when you go down a crowded street like this, but the speed hump does extend from nearly the curb on the left to the curb on the right. There's a gap in there that allows for water to drain in the gutter line. So the speed humps, as Betty indicated, 3 inches high. You approach them slowly, and the speeds in St. Louis County on our local subdivision streets are typically 25 mile per hour. So you would have a hard time probably crossing over this speed hump at that kind of speed. So you tend to slow down. Here's another one, has actually more plastic, thermoplastic indicators, striping on the pavement, on the speed hump itself. Not probably what we would be doing, but this is again the city of St. Louis. Here's another one. You can see the speed hump further in the down the road there, but there is a sign. So this one does kind of give you a heads up warning that you're coming towards the speed hump. Here's one that's a little clearer image of a speed hump with that extends from the gutter line on either side of the roadway. It's nearby a park. Another image of the same speed hump from the other direction. Gives you an idea of that. And maybe you've seen these before, maybe you've driven over these, and if you've been in the city of St. Louis, these are, a lot of these are taken from the Hill neighborhood. And that gives you a general idea of what these are going to look like when we get them installed. We're looking at, as Betty showed on that map, quite a number of subdivisions across the county, north, south, and west county areas. So there is a candidate list of subdivisions that we've identified as she's described based upon the criteria of speeding and crashes things such as that. We do have a survey available for you that if you can look in the chat, there's a QR code that gives you a quick link to the survey questions on the project web page. So we would invite you to go to that project web page and take that survey. Give us a little more information on these. We do have a question in the chat right now. When snowplows go through these speed bumps, is that going to get damaged? They will.
I put an answer in the chat, John.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. Thank you very much.
Yes, please put any questions or comments in the chat.
Yeah. And our snow plowing crews, at least they'll be aware when they're in a subdivision that has these, and the signs will be visible yet, even though it's snowed. So they'll have a fair warning they're coming up on these.
They don't have to lift the plow. They've been tested. There may be a small area where the plow doesn't have as much contact with the pavement, but not enough to impact safety.
Again, there is a link that Betty just posted in our chat for this meeting where you can, we're inviting you to take that survey and answer just a few simple questions. Give us an idea of how this program can benefit your neighborhood. There's another image of the QR code.
If you want to take it on your phone while you're here in the meeting, you can just open up your camera and hover over this QR code and it'll open the survey. I haven't tested it on this screen yet.
I did.
Oh.
And it's working.
Again, we invite you, any questions you may have, put them in the chat. We'll try to respond to them. That's the basic information that we have for this evening. If there's anything else, we can go back and look at these photos again if you want to see those, or the map. If you're curious about which subdivisions may be involved. We do have the project website, which I'll put a link to that up in the chat as well.
I just did that for you, John.
Okay, thank you very much, Misty.
Uh-huh.
So there's a link now in the chat for this traffic calming project web page. Get you a lot more information. That page right there that we're looking at gives a list of streets, subdivisions, candidates that we're considering.
We've got a couple more questions in the chat too, John, once you have a moment.
Yeah, the time frame. Perhaps you can answer that one, Betty. What is the time frame for getting this project bid?
The construction we anticipate to begin in the spring of 2027.
Yeah. So we'll bid it this fall, start work next spring. It does take time for projects to be advertised and approved. Those bids have to be approved by our St. Louis County Council. That process takes several weeks. We do not build pavement type of construction during the winter. The winter is just not a good time. The temperatures and the rain and the ice and all interfere with normal good construction. So it's they might be able to do some work, but when the temperatures are cold and that the ground might be frozen a bit, we just don't schedule any construction during those months.
Yeah. So the purpose of this public involvement meeting, as Betty said, our list started with a list of complaints that we know somebody in the neighborhood had a concern. That got them on the list. Then we'd verify that there was either speeding, crashes, or both. There was an opportunity for cut through traffic, and the last criteria was there was a lack of sidewalk, meaning there would be pedestrians on the road because they didn't have a dedicated space. We know we do not have money to build sidewalks in older subdivisions, and I wish we did. But so the purpose of this meeting is kind of twofold, to show you what we came up with as a design, but also to get other folks in the subdivision involved. So, we're not just hearing from one person in the subdivision. After this meeting, we will finalize that list of sites. We put together what is called a letting package that kind of tells contractors what we're looking for. Then the contractors bid, and we give it to the low bid. And then we sign a contract. All of that, we're having this meeting now so we can do that during the winter months when construction doesn't normally take place, and they can hit the ground running in the spring.
There's another question that says, was this information confirmed with our resident officer for statistics?
I'm not sure what that question is. I'm not familiar with the resident officer for statistics.
I think it's mostly a question of where we collected our data from for scoring purposes.
Yes, so with the advent of AI and some other online vendor resources, we have good data information for speeds on roads throughout the county. And most recently, we have a crash reporting system that will go through the thousands and thousands of crash reports that get reported up to the state police level. All the local police departments put it into one big system, and that is run by the state. And there are vendors out there now that have tools to sift through all of that data very quickly and show us where our issues are as far as speeding and crashes go. And Betty, are you looking up the actual score for tempo by any chance?
Yes,
Okay. I thought you would be, but just want to make sure.
31.
If you have any more questions or comments, please put them in the chat. We're happy to answer them.
Eddie, can you describe how we arrive at a
To
score
31. Okay.
for any of these roads? What does that include?
Let me bring that. Okay, so the criteria we used is speeding, crash rate, crash severity, cut through, and sidewalk gap. So for tempo drive, we had a total crash, two crashes between 2019 and 2023. We have 10 points from the speeding score, 1 from the crash rate score, 10 from cut through, and 10 from the sidewalk score. So all in all become 31.
Yeah, that's not the speed limit 31 or the measured speeding either. 31 is more of a scoring criteria number that we arrived at based upon the 4 features or criteria that we used to evaluate all these roads.
And to answer Tim Foley, that was assigned maximum points for no sidewalks and the cut through traffic potential. So as far as how many speed humps overall, or are we asking about a particular location?
I think maybe asking for tempo drive. So is that how many speed humps now? Okay, so tempo drive 1, and then impact drive, is R2. Because of the curve, we're not able to place the speed humps at this curve. So we have 1 here. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, I might zoom in a little bit more.
Okay. So
Sure, there's not another one underneath that council district. Okay.
yeah. So we have
All right.
1 towards the beginning and then on impact drive 2. So all in all 3. I mean, it's a tempo drive 1, impact drive 2, but I guess the cut through complaint was, using tempo drive and going to impact drive and then go to Olive. So between impact drive and tempo drive, we're gonna have 3 speed humps. I am not sure. Are the stop signs working now?
I don't know if there has been a before and after. Actually, the folks out there would be the ones to know better if people are paying attention to those or if they're rolling them or blowing them all together.
Generally speaking, we don't consider stop signs to be a means of speed control. They're not really an effective means for traffic calming. As you can imagine, the people that are ignoring speed limit signs are probably going to ignore most stop signs as well.
Especially if it's not a busy intersection.
So we're really looking here at doing physical change to the road that's going to force drivers to change their behavior.
Okay, I see the question. How many on Orchard Lakes Drive? It's a long stretch. 11. You can see in the screen. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 11.
And actually, whoever asked that question, you may be able to tell us better too, because we weren't quite positive what the preferred route was for those who might be cutting through. If what we have shown in purple is the way people are going, we could switch that around because right now the section in purple is on the list of to be done if funding allows. So your input there would be useful.
From Tailway.
So Betty, you want to scroll down to the bottom of the web page real quick?
Web page. Okay.
Well, that's one thing we did not mention either. So that, you can of course contact all the way down. You can of course contact any of us at any time. The official contact you will find on the web page for this area, and he is on this meeting, is Adam Spector, and you'll see his phone number and email at the bottom. So if you had a question we didn't get to, if you think of something later, feel free to give Adam a message. And, we talked about the number on tempo and impact where we had them shown our what fits best as far as we see when we look at intersections, grades, as Betty mentioned, curves. If you think maybe one more should go in somewhere, things of that nature. If there's one shown in a place that shouldn't be, when you get to the website and you look at the map in a little more detail, that's the kind of thing we're looking for.
There's a question, will jobs be awarded to union contractors? Yes, the county bids these projects. All of our projects get advertised and bid to the general construction community.
Yeah.
And we have requirements in all of our contracts to pay state wage rates to all of our, for all their employees. So yes, we'll use union.
We have what's called a prime contractor, and their workforce makeup, John, I don't know for sure if anything as far as union is detailed. But there's definitely a lot of regulation in there as far as the fair wages. And that is policed diligently. We're more in the planning end of things, so I'm sorry if I sound vague.
Comment again about speed humps and snow plows. We talked about that earlier in the meeting this afternoon, and these snow plows that the county uses are equipped to pass over these speed humps without any difficulty. They have a rubberized blade on the plow that will allow them to pass over the speed hump without doing any damage to it. And as far as drivers go, if you take a speed hump at too great of a speed, yeah, you could possibly damage your vehicle, but the speed hump taken at a slower speed shouldn't cause any issues. And we're going to keep all the stop signs as far as I know, correct, Betty? We're not taking out any stop sign.
No, we're not.
Not as part of this project. Any existing stop sign is backed by an ordinance passed by the county council. So we cannot just go out and remove them. We would have to get permission from the county council to do that.
And please fill out the survey because your input will help us to make informed decisions that better serve our communities.
Hey guys, we have a question around damage to vehicles. Should the speed bump cause damage to a vehicle? Who would they speak to?
I might suggest you get in touch with our area engineer who could give you some more information on addressing damage to your vehicle anytime that would happen on any county road anywhere.
I don't know if I can find it during this meeting, but there is an area on our website for people to make claims as far as risk management type stuff goes. As a road provider in general, some of our roads will get to the point of having potholes before we can get around to addressing the surface condition. A pothole is definitely something that can cause damage, and things of that nature are handled through our risk management, and they will determine
I've put
what
that
can happen.
contact in
Oh,
the
thank you.
chat box.
Thank you, Adam. There it is. Anytime you need assistance with the damage to your vehicle, you can reach out to them.
So, yeah, one common, well, I shouldn't say common, but it does happen on at least a few jobs is we have a lot of roads with striping. So these roads, they'll be striping on the speed hump, but they don't have a lot of long yellow and long white stripes. But when we have to refresh that striping, we put out cones to try and let the paint dry. Sometimes people will still manage to get paint on their car. That is a very common call. Things of that nature go to risk management.
Fortunately, in these subdivisions, we don't stripe the streets, do we? There is no yellow line or white lines on those kind of streets.
Other than those that we are going to put on the speed humps, subdivision streets do not get striped. Oh, I got to turn my camera back on.
Any other questions or comments? Feel free to put them in the chat. We'll try to answer them best we can. We had someone
Yeah.
just joined our meeting.
Yeah, Betty, if you want to go back to the map, I can do a quick rundown of the central area. Zoom out a little bit. Actually, go ahead and zoom out countywide, if
Okay.
you would. So as you folks may or may not know, St. Louis County has an arterial road system which goes throughout the county, whether or not it's unincorporated or in a municipality like Maryland Heights or Creve, Coeur, things of that nature. But in unincorporated St. Louis County, we are also the keepers of your subdivision streets. So we somewhat act as the city government would in those municipalities. So we have three distinct areas of unincorporated county where we are concentrating on with this effort. You'll see there's roads highlighted in North County that are green and purple. There's roads that are highlighted in South County. And at this particular meeting is concentrating on the large pocket of unincorporated around Creve Coeur. So the roads shown in green, we are fairly certain that our funding will cover all of the green roads in all three areas. And I guess I'd let Betty go through the exact roads because it's too small on my
Actually,
screen to.
let me make it. Do you see it? Is this?
Okay, so that is the central area. Okay. But tempo is in the green now, though.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
It's in green. Yeah.
So what yeah, so what is in the green is what we're fairly certain that we can afford countywide. And if the bids come in reasonable, well, then we will start looking at the purple list. And that can all be seen on the website. Yeah.
Again, as Glenn mentioned earlier this afternoon, this is a pilot project, so it's a limited amount of funding at this time. We really want to see how it goes with these particular subdivision streets being addressed with traffic calming, with speed humps. It's the only thing we're really doing at this point is the speed hump idea. And now over on the far right in that, you see a number 2 for and 11 for Orchard Lakes, 1 on Tempo Drive. Tells you how many speed humps are proposed along that roadway.
Oh, sorry.
Oh. So 2 on Impact, 11 on Orchard Lakes, 1 on Tempo.
Yeah. And there is a table with this same information on the website. Betty just brought up the spreadsheet, so it's easier to filter and look at the one particular area.
There is a link to the project website in the chat box. If you take a look there, it'll give you a more complete picture of this project program.
And if you know of anybody that was not able to make this meeting, we are going to have a recording on the website once we get done, and we will have 2 more live meetings, one for each of the other areas, north and south. So those are Wednesday and Thursday evenings. We'll be concentrating, on the actual road streets in those areas, but if they couldn't make tonight, we'd be glad to try and answer any specific questions if we have time.
If anyone has any more questions or comments, please put them in the chat. Thank you.
And for the ones who couldn't make it tonight's meeting, please share the QR code for the survey.
Yeah, if you just take an actual picture of that, a neighbor can use that picture to get to the website. Just hovering over it on their phone, hovering over your phone screen. So. Yeah, I kind of thought you were talking about impact. All right, well, if there are no other questions, I believe that is all we have for you folks. I'll give you one last chance. Like I said, if you think of something later, you have Adam's contact information. Feel free to join one of the other meetings. Please take our survey. Please share the survey with your neighbors who may not have attended. We do like to get as much input as possible.
Yeah, thank you everyone for attending this evening.
Yes, we value your input. Thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate your interest.
If there's no more questions or comments, we'll go ahead and end the meeting. Thanks, everyone, and have a great night.